Okay, recently had a query about sharpening in Photoshop using a deconvolution method of sharpening, which I knew nothing about. All I know is unsharp mask and smart sharpen. But on further investigation, I've discovered a few things about sharpening in Photoshop. I've got some examples that have been done with a third-party that can be done with a third-party plugin for Photoshop or a standalone product from Astro. So what we're looking at on screen here is a bit of blurred text, and the Astro image software came up with this result, which makes it actually quite easy to read this software. Well, this bit of text rather. Okay, so this uses what's called a deconvolution method of sharpening. It's much better than unsharp mask. So if I quickly show you an unsharp mask, filter, sharpen using the unsharp mask. That's been in Adobe for donkey's years, in Photoshop for donkey's years, and you can fiddle around with the radius and try and get a slightly better result. And while you can start to make that out, it's not quite as good. So the threshold really just says what to sharpen and what not to sharpen, when to leave the whole thing, because there's really no noise in this one. So that's unsharp mask. We'll label that. So probably that's not the best method. Don't need a new group. So the Astro image still wins. The next method that I tried was using a new sharpen, which was Smart Sharpen. This is not brand new, but it's been in Photoshop for a couple of versions now. And I'm told by a reliable source that this does use a deconvolution method of sharpening, whilst probably not as sophisticated as Astro Images one. It still does get a very good result, and of course if you've got Photoshop, it comes with Photoshop. So let's have a look at how that works. So the way I would do this is, I've already got a result at the top there, but we'll get to that in a minute. The way I would do this would be, I would duplicate the layer, so that's Control J or Command J, duplicate layer, and we'll call this Smart. I would convert that into a smart object. Now the reason is this keeps it editable. So come over here to convert to smart object. Do that, looks good. Now when we go up to filter and sharpen, that will keep this editable. So we go to smart sharpen and then it instantly comes up. So the default setting for this is basic and Gaussian. Okay. Now, because what we're doing is astrophotography, then the better way to remove, any blur in it is actually a lens blur rather than a Gaussian blur. Of course, there's a motion blur as well, but the lens blur is more accurate because it compensates for, the iris in the shutter being, like a hexagonal type shape or something of that nature rather than just an overall blur. So that's step one. The settings I've got it on are basically the best for this image, but you will need to play around with it. So you definitely want to tick on more accurate because it makes a huge amount of difference. The more accurate button, it spends a little bit more time doing it. So you definitely want to have that on. The bigger the image too, the better result you're going to get. Now the amount is how much we're going to, try and solve here. So we really want to crank this up. I wish I could take it a little bit further, to be honest, but let's go ahead and leave it on there. And the radius is we're going to try and match that to what the blur of the original is. So way back here is not enough. And as we slowly drag this up, you can start to see the letters taking shape, and we get to around about, I figured out that 8 kind of was around about right for this one, and you go too far and it starts falling apart again. So I think the tip off is around about 8 on this one. So I think probably the Astro images allows you to go a little bit further than this, but that's how we go there. Go ahead and press OK, and then that's our Smart Sharpen. It's pretty good. It's got one bonus, and that is that it comes with a mask. So if you want to target this to a particular area, what you can do is fill that mask with black. So I just hit Alt Delete, that fills it with the foreground color. You can get a white paintbrush and paint on that mask and just lighten up or just sharpen up a certain area. And if you've got a soft edge brush, you know, you can kind of focus an area and have the rest out of focus if you want a kind of a special technique. But you know, you may not want that. So, you know, I'll just go back a few steps, and that's kind of where we are. The other thing that you can do is, because it's a smart filter, you can double click it, get in there, and then do it that way. The other thing that's just occurred to me, if you want to try and go a little bit further, what we can do here is take this layer and then come back to the layer menu. Let's rasterize this smart object. So that turns it into a real layer. And then, just as a matter of interest, we run that filter again. So you can see we run it again, and then it really starts to come up, and then we can fade that back a little bit if we want to. So, you know, you can drop it back to, you know, something that was, you know, maybe a little bit less or whatever. So 2 in a row. Let's just try one more thing. So you come back down here to Sharpen again. Where are we? Sharpen. We come down to the Smart Sharpen once more. This time it's way too much. And we could probably drop that back to, say, half as much, which is, say, 4. And then drop the amount back. So we're really taking advantage of this, but twice in a row. And I think that's not bad. If we hit OK on that, let's have a look. That's our Smart Sharpen. That's the Astro image. So a little bit dirtier, but pretty good. So that is using a deconvolution filter. Maybe we could despeckle that or something in a bit. The real proof comes though when you try it on an image. So this is an Astro image here. It is definitely a nice image. So what we're going to do is again duplicate this, turn this into a smart object, convert it to a smart object, filter, down to Sharpen and Smart Sharpen. Definitely use the lens blur, but you can see from the preview, if you click and hold your mouse in here, that we're probably going too far there, so we can bring the amount back on this one quite significantly and probably bring the radius back too. Just looking at this, I would say 2 or 3 pixels will be ample because we're just looking at the stars there. So if I click and hold, that's before, let it go, that's after. So that's really sharpening. Maybe we'll just for effect, we'll do a little bit more, 150, and we'll press OK on that. So that's going to sharpen this up quite a bit. We'll zoom in for a good look at it, you know, just to see. Again, you could duplicate this if you wanted to. We've got plenty of power for this particular one. We'll turn it off. So that's before. That's after. Using the Smart Sharpen, I think it's not a bad way to go.